A very good morning to Madam Shafika. My name is Denise and matrix number is 23DVT 18F 2005, and the practical that I'll be carrying out today will be on the experiment thin layer chromatography. So these are the of materials and apparatus that I'll be using. So I'm using the scissors to form the TLC plate, and then to measure it I'll have a pencil and a ruler, and then I'll have this that will be the TLC plate. I'll be using paper towels, and then for measuring I'll be using this, a 5 ml teaspoon. This is a measuring teaspoon, and then this, because I don't have a small needle to place the sample on the TLC plate, and then this will be my pestle and mortar. Inside here are the samples that I'll be using that are actually pudina leaves, and then this will be working with this that I'll be working with is the TLC chamber, or I'll be using a jar, and lastly to substitute acetic acid I'll be using vinegar. So in the first part of the experiment, which is task 1, I'll be showing you how to make the sample. So I'll be adding 10 ml of the vinegar into the fresh sample and crush the leaves. So this is actually a 5 ml measuring spoon. So I'll be using 2 spoons of this to make up for 10 ml. So 5 ml in, 10 ml in. Okay, so now I'll just put this away, and I will begin to crush the sample. So it's been some time since I finished crushing the sample, so right now the sample looks slightly green and a little watery. Now we will move on to task 2. Task 2 would be to prepare the developing chamber. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure 0.5 cm out of this glass chamber, and so 0.5 cm is right about here, and so I'm going to mark that with a marker pen. Okay, so this is the mark that I'll be making. So I'll have to pour 5 to 10 ml of the same solvent, just not exceeding this mark. Okay, so as usual I'll be using the same spoon. Measuring 5 ml in, which is just about right, not exceeding the jar. So now I need to stopper the jar so that I would prevent the vinegar from vaporizing. Moving on to task 3 now. The next part is to prepare the TLC plate. So how I would prepare it is by measuring the bottle, the jar. So as I've already measured earlier, this is about approximately 15 cm, including the stopper, and at the diameter was about 5 cm. So I've measured that out, and this is how it looks. And now I will cut it out. After cutting it out, this is how the TLC plate looks. So now on to the marking of the plate. So first you'd have to measure about 1 cm from the bottom of the plate, and I'm going to use exactly 1 centimeter. So you have to be very gentle when you're marking this, because it's a paper towel and it can tend to tear. Okay, so this is the first line. It's a very light line. I've marked. Now I'll be moving on to marking from the 1 centimeter line. I'll be measuring another 5 cm and marking that. I'll give it a bit more. I'll put it up 7. Okay, so I'll mark that and I'll give it okay, so I've drawn the lines now. It's very light. So right about now, I will be placing a small dot. Also using that, I'll be measuring to draw it right in the middle. Okay. So this is where I will be spotting the sample onto the TLC plate. That would be on the next task. The next task is to spot the TLC plate. So this is how it looks, the sample looks, and now I'll be using this. I don't have a microcapillary tube, so I'll be using a stick. So you can see I will take a tad bit from this, avoiding all the... Okay, now I will take this and I will spot the plate. It's just in the middle of the dot that I've made. So now what I'm going to do is I've spotted the first dot. It's very light and I have to let it dry for about 1 to 2 minutes and then spot it again. But as I'm spotting it, I have to spot it tinily and prevent the dot from spreading. It has to just darken, not spread, to increase the concentration of it, not to spread the spot to make it larger. So after I have managed to spread it and darken the spot, we will move on to placing it in the chamber. Okay, so right now I've been able to get a bit of a concentrated dot. So now this is the chamber and I'll be placing it in the chamber for the next task. So putting it right into the chamber. Okay, and then I have to close it straight away. Make sure it doesn't fall down too much. Okay, so we'll just have to wait for it to reach the line and we can see how far it traveled. Okay, so now I'm taking it out from the chamber and letting it sit here to dry for a bit, because it's past the line of the 5 centimeter that I've marked. And then after it dries, we'll measure how far the pigment has traveled. Okay, so after allowing the TLC plate to dry for about 15 minutes or so, I decided to see how far the pigment traveled. And you can see I've also measured and marked a small pencil mark there to show how far it traveled. It's not very pigmented, but it traveled quite a bit. So just repeating this step of measuring one more time. From the 1 centimeter. It traveled for about approximately 4.4 centimeters. There's a small pencil mark that I made here to show that it traveled for about 4.4 centimeters. It did not manage to travel to the 7 centimeter line that I initially made, but it traveled up to this small line right here. So that is all for my experiment today. Thank you, madam. So this will be the last part of my video. I'll be calculating the RF value. This TLC plate is actually based on the results that I obtained yesterday. So the results that I obtained yesterday was the distance traveled by the pigment. It was not very clear, but when I did measure it, it traveled for approximately 4.4 centimeter, and the distance traveled by the solvent is about 7 centimeters. So the RF formula would be distance traveled by the pigment over the distance traveled by the solvent. So dividing it, I would get 0.63 centimeters. So normally, RF values are given a range due to the fact that the components of the solvent mixture evaporates at different rates. So the solvent mixture that we might use sometimes might be slightly different proportions to other times when chromatography is carried out. So when I look at it, the pigment that I obtained would be the anthocyanins, because the RF value ranges from 0.2 to 0.6, 0.32 to 0.63. So I got almost the same answer. So the pigment would be anthocyanins. That is all from me today, madam. Thank you.